Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the October 10th, 2024 meeting of the Memphis and Shelby County Land Use Control Board. My name is Mary W. Sharp. I will be serving as your chairperson today. We will begin this morning's meeting with a roll call. Mr. Penzis, would you proceed, please?
Mr. McKinnon.
Here.
Ms. O'Connell.
Here.
Mr. Tolles.
Here.
Ms. Wilbanks.
Here.
Mr. Winter.
Present.
Vice Chair Lyles Wallace.
Here.
And Chair Sharp.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Penzis. I would like to remind you that copies of today's agenda are located at the front right podium if you need them. If you wish to be a speaker on any case that is on today's agenda, please fill out the attendance speaker's card located at the front podiums. Once you have filled out the card, please bring it up front and hand it to one of our DPD staff members located at the left podium. When that agenda item is called, you will be given an opportunity to speak. At this point, I would like to read the conflict of interest. The adopted policy of the Land Use Control Board requires that any member of the board recuse himself or herself from any participation in the discussion or voting on any matter in the meeting's agenda in which he or she may have direct or indirect personal interest. The member shall vacate his or her seat during deliberation on any matter from which they have recused themselves. An abstention may substitute for recusal for the purposes of maintaining a quorum. I would like to now get approval of our minutes from the last meeting. May I have a motion?
Move to approve.
May I have a second?
Second.
Okay, it has moved. We have a second. Is there any discussion amongst our board members about approving the minutes of the meeting? Hearing none, I assume that we're ready to vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Mr. Penzis, may I please get a secretary's report for this month and an explanation of today's procedures?
Yes, ma'am. At the beginning of today's meeting, we will establish a consent agenda for those items where no one in the audience or on the board is requesting an individual public hearing. After the consent agenda is established and approved, we will move on to the regular agenda. For each case on the regular agenda, the DPD planner will give a presentation. This will be followed by the applicant's presentation and any testimony from others who support the application. The applicant and supporters will be given a total of 10 minutes. Following each speaker, the chair will ask the board members if they have any questions for that speaker. Next, the opposition will be given a total of 10 minutes to present their case. Following each speaker, the chair will ask the board members if they have any questions for that speaker. Finally, the applicant will then have a 3-minute rebuttal period under the same rules. Following the presentations, and after all parties have been heard, the chair will ask if the board members have any additional question of anyone who spoke. Then the chair will close the public hearing portion of the case, entertain a motion on the matter, discuss, and then vote on the application. If an applicant or any speaker would like to be heard after the conclusion of the public hearing portion of the case, or if a board member wishes to hear any additional testimony from any party for additional clarification, a motion will need to be made along with a second and then a 2/3 affirmative vote of the board is required to reopen the public hearing portion of the agenda item. If the public hearing is reopened, both the applicant and the opposition will be allowed an equal amount of time to provide additional testimony. After the additional comments, the board will close the public hearing portion of the case and deliberate and take the final vote. Again, if any member of the audience wishes to provide testimony in support of or in opposition to a case, he or she will need to fill out a speaker's card. These are available at the front podium. Speaker's cards are not required of applicants since their names are already part of the record.
Thank you, Mr. Penzis. The board is a supporter of community involvement, and we welcome neighborhood comments and feedback. We are respectful of the fact that many of you have taken off work or adjusted your schedules to be here today, but we ask that your comments please be made within the time frame allowed. If there are multiple speakers, please try not to be repetitive so as to make the most of your side's 10-minute time allotment. Lastly, I'd like to ask you to silence your cell phones so as not to interrupt or disturb anyone during today's meeting. With our procedures explained, I would like to introduce to my right Ms. Lisa Wilbanks, who will be this morning's consent agenda chairperson. Ms. Wilbanks will read items 1 through 22 as the consent agenda. Once the consent agenda is read, if you wish to discuss one of those items individually, please come forward and give us the item number, and we will pull that case. We will then vote on the remaining consent agenda items as one vote. And following the vote, we will hear the cases that were pulled individually. Ms. Wilbanks, would you please proceed?
Yes, ma'am. Item number 1 has been withdrawn. Item number 2, case SUP 2024-020, near Lamar. The request is a special use permit to allow a group daycare home located at 2522 Bryan Cove. Staff recommendation is approval with conditions. Item number 3 has been withdrawn. Item number 4, case PD 2024-011 in Whitehaven. The request is to add land to the existing commercial Brooks Fernando Plan Development located at 1145 East Brooks Road. Staff recommendation is approval with revisions to the outline plan conditions. Item number 5, case SUP 2024-011 near Jackson. The request is a special use permit to allow vehicle sales, specifically ATVs, in the commercial mixed-use 3 district located at 4965 Summer Avenue. Staff recommendation is hold for 1 month. Item number 7, case NJR 2024-038 in Core City. The request is a site plan review to allow fencing for the Malco Powerhouse Cinema and the Memphis Farmers Market located at 540 South Front Street. Staff recommendation is hold for 1 month. Item number 8, case NJR 2024-039 in Core City. The request is a site plan review to allow more density in a residential development located at 2371 Avery Avenue. Staff recommendation is approval with conditions, and we do have a friendly amendment to read in.
Good morning. This is Masana Stadnia with DPD. So the friendly amendment is number, let's see. It's outline plan conditions uses permitted. First one, number C. The minimum side yard setback shall be 2 feet provided there is a minimum separation of 5 feet between the buildings. This is what we are changing in the outline plan conditions.
Thank you. Item number 9, case NJR 2024-040 in unincorporated Shelby County. The request is a major modification to allow a previous bank drive-through or a drive-through restaurant located at 1105 North Houston Levee Road. Staff recommendation is approval with conditions, and we do have a friendly amendment to read in for that one as well.
Yes, ma'am. I'll read the friendly amendment. It's going to be a site condition number 3. And it will say the dumpsters shall be maintained and screened in such a manner that no trash is visible at any time.
Thank you. Item number 10, case PD 2024-013 in Parkway Village. The request is a new planned development to allow a drop yard located on the south side of East Shelby Drive, approximately 700 feet west of Tullahoma Road. Staff recommendation is a hold. Item number 11, case SUP 2024-027 in Parkway Village. The request is a special use permit to allow vehicle rental located at 5709 Mount Moriah Road. Staff recommendation is hold for 1 month. Item number 12, case SUP 2024-029 in Parkway Village. The request is a special use permit to allow vehicle sales located at 5205 Winchester Road. Staff recommendation is hold for 1 month. Item number 13, case SUP 2024-031 in Parkway Village. The request is a special use permit to allow vehicle sales located at 5435 Fox Plaza Drive. Staff recommendation is hold for 1 month. Item number 14, case 2024-034 in the University District. The request is a special use permit to allow a bar/tavern located at 485 North Hollywood Street. Staff recommendation is hold for 1 month. Item number 15, case NJR 2024-041 in Core City. The request is correspondence to allow an alley closure located at 725 Court Avenue. Staff recommendation is approval with conditions. Item number 16, case NJR 2024-042 near Jackson. The request is a major modification to allow an indoor market with gas pumps located at 3502 Summer Avenue. Staff recommendation is hold for 1 month. Item number 17, case NJR 2024-043 in unincorporated Shelby County. The request is a site plan review to allow a restaurant located at 3785 Forest Hill, Irene Road. Staff recommendation is hold for 1 month. Item number 18, case MJR 2024-044 in Cordova. The request is a site plan review to allow a fast food restaurant located at 2826 North Germantown Parkway. Staff recommendation is approval with no additional conditions. Item number 19 has been withdrawn. Item number 20, case S 2024-028 in Raleigh. The request is a 15-lot residential major subdivision located at the northeast corner of East Holmes and Hillbrook Roads. Staff recommendation is approval with conditions. Item number 21, case S 2024-029 in Core City. The request is a 6-lot residential major subdivision located at 561 Leeds Street. Staff recommendation is approval. And item number 22, case SUP 2024-036 near Jackson. The request is a special use permit to allow an in-home family daycare located at 888 North Perkins. Staff recommendation is approval with conditions. That is our consent agenda.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Wilbanks. We have pulled item number 6. The items on the consent agenda will now be voted on with one vote, subject to the recommendation of DPD. If the consent agenda is approved, only item number 6 will have a full independent public hearing. By voting on the consent agenda, each board member is affirming that he or she has read the staff report and agrees with its findings and, where applicable, its recommendation, its recommended condition. Can I get a motion, please?
Yes, move to approve. Item number 2, case SUP 2024-020. Item number 4, case PD 2024-011. Item number 5, case SUP 2024-011 is a hold. Item number 7, case MJR 2024-038 is a hold. Item number 8, case MJR 2024-039 with a friendly amendment. Item number 9, case MJR 2024-040 with a friendly amendment. Item number 10, case PD 2024-013 is a hold. Item number 11, case SUP 2024-027 is a hold. Item number 12, case SUP 2024-029 is a hold. Item number 13, case SUP 2024-031 is a hold. Item number 14, case SUP 2024-034 is a hold. Item number 15, case MJR 2024-041. Item number 16, case MJR 2024-042. Item number 17, case MJR 2024-043 is a hold. Item number 18, case MJR 2024-044. Item number 20, case S 2024-028. Item number 21, case S 2024-029. And item number 22, case SUP 2024-036.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a second. We have a motion. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion amongst our board members? Okay, hearing none, I assume we're ready to vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Now we will go to my left, to Ms. Desiree Lyles Wallace, our regular chair for today.
Okay. Item number 6, case PD 2024-016, North, new plan development to allow vehicle storage located at 1389 Fairfax Street. Staff recommendation is rejection.
Okay, we'll hear the case.
Good morning, I'm LaTanya Hull from DPD. I'm presenting case PD 2024-016. This was formerly case Z 2024-007, a request for rezoning. The applicant at our August meeting requested a hold to resubmit this application as a planned development so that conditions could be included. And so that's what we're reviewing today, a new planned development for vehicle storage. I won't go through the entire presentation again, but it's located on Fairfax Street in the city of Memphis. The land use currently for the existing subject properties, which include the office as well as the vehicle storage parcel, are residential with abutting industrial and EMP uses and residential uses. On your screen are site photos, same site photos that we saw last time of the existing conditions of the site. Currently, the site has a site-proof fence. There are approximately 25-plus wrecked vehicles on the site, as well as 2 containers. And this is an area view of the site. This is the new outline plan that was submitted by the applicant. It includes setbacks on the side of 5 feet, a rear setback of 20 feet, and a front setback of 20 feet. And it requests the storage of 26 vehicles and to retain the 2 storage units on the site. As previously discussed, the use is not consistent with Memphis 3.0. They have determined that it is not in alignment with existing zoning. It will have a negative impact on the neighborhood. Staff has, here are the conclusions for the case. The applicant is requesting a new plan development for vehicle storage at the subject location, which was formerly Z 2024-7. The applicant has filed the application was filed in response to a citation received by zoning code enforcement for automobile service and repair. Staff recommends rejection of this particular request as well. If you remember, there's some discussion about the actual definition and the use on the site. Staff and code enforcement believes that the use is a salvage yard and a junkyard. However, the applicant has presented it as vehicle storage. And I will discuss that a little bit later because that's really a key point to why I am recommending rejection. In this particular case, I believe that the use is a junkyard/salvage yard as defined by the UDC and as evidenced by the applicant's website for its business that operates from that address. That use is only allowed in industrial districts and it requires approval of a special use permit. It is believed that the intensity and nature of the use is inappropriate for its current location in the residential area and is incompatible with the surrounding uses. Staff does not believe that the request is appropriate for a plan development, and I'll talk a little bit about what the intent and purpose of the plan development is as well. I believe it's actually contrary to the intent of a plan development and is inconsistent with the Memphis 3.0. I believe that it will substantially affect the neighborhood and have an undue adverse effect on the adjacent property, the character of the neighborhood, traffic conditions, parking, and other matters affecting the public health. However, staff has recommended revisions to the outline plan conditions provided by the applicant in the case that the board decides to approve this, which includes limiting the vehicles to 26 on-site vehicles, retaining the 2 containers that are there, requiring the installation of Class 3 landscape buffers as required by the UDC to shield the use from neighboring properties as well as the public right-of-way. Additionally, the following are prohibited: stacking of vehicles, automobile repair, service, dismantling, recycling, and recovering of any parts from the vehicles. Also prohibited is the selling of any parts from the site. The approval is tied to the current owner of the subject properties. If the ownership of either of the 2 properties are changed, then the PD is voided. So we are really, recommending that if this is approved, it's just for this particular use in this particular subject property by this owner. And no expansion of uses to this PD would be allowed. So, we talked about the website. This is information on the applicant's website that suggests that they are performing services that are in line with a salvage yard and a junkyard, which includes dismantling. This is language that's from their website, and selling parts. So we're prohibiting that. And so I want to look a little bit at the plan development intent, because that's really, there are two key parts to my rejection: the intent of a plan development and the use that's being at the site. And so there are certain objectives for the plan development. The purpose of a plan development is to allow more flexibility and a better use of a property than what is currently zoned. You know, the intent is that we allow a development that has mixed uses, that have a higher use than what would be allowed under the zoning. The objective is to have a better environmental design, to be able to diversify the uses on that property, to have functional and beneficial uses of open space, preserve natural features, create a safer and desirable environment, and going on and on. And I do not feel that this particular use as a salvage yard and as a junkyard, or even as a vehicle storage, is a better use in a residential zone than a home would be. And it does not diversify any uses. It does not add any additional environmental value to the site. So I do not believe that it's appropriate for this use to be approved as a planned development. So that's my first consideration. The second consideration, and probably the most important, is the definition of the use on the site. The applicant has revised their application to indicate that they are doing vehicle storage. Vehicle storage is allowed in EMP, which is an adjacent use to this subject property. So I believe that's the intent, is that, you know, we're close enough to an EMP use, we're right next to it, we're doing something that's allowed there, which is vehicle storage. However, the UDC does not define what's happening at that site as vehicle storage. The intent of vehicle storage for the UDC is that they're going to be storing vehicles associated with a permitted use in that zone that will be restored to operational use. That's what the point is. It's associated with commercial uses such as vehicle sales, repair, leasing, and services. So when you look at the UDC, everywhere that vehicle storage is mentioned is associated with a commercial use, and I have put here the section of the code that explains that. So in our use section, vehicle services, so if you have a tire shop or an automobile repair shop that has multiple vehicles that they're working on, if they can't get to a vehicle in 1, 2, 3 days, they can store those vehicles on their site until they can get to that vehicle and get it repaired. You have a leasing facility who has multiple vehicles on their site. If they don't have the space on the principal site for those vehicles, they can store those vehicles on another lot. This is intended to be associated with a permitted commercial use, not an industrial use, which is what the junkyard and salvage yard is. The UDC specifically distinguishes vehicle storage from salvage yard and junkyards. I have categories of outside storage and display, which specifically states that anything that's associated or defined as a salvage yard and a junkyard requires a special permit. It's not included in vehicle storage. So that's why I believe that we have to really get an understanding of what the use is, because it's going to determine how we move forward on this case. So what does the UDC say about this use? The UDC's intent for a salvage yard and a junkyard is to store vehicles that are not being restored for operational use. The applicant at our last meeting indicated that there were no intent to restore the vehicles on their site. Their intent was to hold the vehicles and sell them as scrap to a scrap metal dismantler. The definition of a salvage and junkyard in our UDC is a building, structure, parcel, or portion thereof where 2 or more vehicles not in running condition or parts thereof are stored in the open and are not being restored to operation, or any land, building, or structure used for wrecking or storing of such motor vehicles or farm machinery or parts thereof, stored in the open and not being restored to operational conditions. So this is what we have on this site. We have a site that is openly storing wrecked vehicles with no intention to restore them for operation. That is how our UDC defines a junkyard. And that is why I contend that this is a junkyard and not vehicle storage. The industrial use standards has a section that talks about salvage yards and junkyards, And that section references the fact that there's a required special use permit to have this use in an industrial zone district, and that it also has to be regulated and comply with the Memphis City Ordinance 5217. So in looking at this ordinance that is referenced here, Memphis City Ordinance 7217, there are a lot of local city, county, and state regulations governing scrap metal, salvage yards, and junkyards. And this is why this is a critical point for reviewing this case. Because I believe if we don't recognize this use for what it is, which is a junkyard, then we are circumventing many laws and regulations that are in place to ensure these types of facilities are operated appropriately. So Memphis Ordinance 5217 defines a junkyard as such. Junk shops or junkyard means any place where odds and ends, old rags, ropes, cordage, old metal, secondhand machinery parts, worn out motor vehicles, and parts thereof, and the like are bought, sold, and stored. And that is what is happening on this site. So as our Memphis City Ordinance defines this as a junkyard, I went further because it references state's requirements. So I looked at the state code as relates to junkyards as well and the definition of what's on this site. And according to the state, Tennessee Department of Transportation, the Motor Vehicle Commission, all of these agencies that regulate this type of activity has defined it similarly, right? It is junk is defined, and it has many different definitions, but included is wrecked automobiles. That's defined as junk. If you look at the definition for junkyard, it says it's an establishment or a place of business which is maintained, operated, or used for storing, keeping, buying, or selling junk, which has been defined as wrecked vehicles, or for the maintenance or operation of an automotive graveyard. And I didn't put the definition of an automotive graveyard, but this use also fits as automotive graveyard. So I think and it has here, including the storage of automobile bodies and parts awaiting disposal. So I think it's important that we recognize this as a junkyard, because I believe that if we don't, then we're allowing the user to operate a use that is not properly regulated. And as a part of the regulations by the city and the state for this use, they're trying to protect the public from environmental degradation. They're trying to ensure that these heavy industrial uses are operated appropriately. So the city, the state, they've defined this as a junkyard. As such, each of them requires them to be licensed as such, be permitted as such, and be regulated as such. And after speaking with an investigator for the Motor Vehicle Commission yesterday, as well as a police sergeant yesterday, as well as Public Works, they do not believe that this business is registered properly and permitted properly as a junkyard. And so they require a state business license, a city business license, a state scrap license and permit, and a city scrap license and permit. That subjects them to annual inspections, annual renewals. It allows the police to be able to go out to the site to make sure that the vehicles that are in this yard are legally owned and not, stolen or being used as a chop shop. Without this designation and without these permits, the police does not have the right to then go and inspect these vehicles. Likewise, when the state goes out to try to inspect and monitor the usage of these types of, uses, these types of yards, they will not be allowed to do that if we do not recognize this as a junkyard. So it's really important, in my opinion, that we understand that this is defined by local, state law as a junkyard, and that by doing so, it then invokes regulations, inspections, and such that are necessary to make sure this property is regulated appropriately. So my recommendation is that we reject this request to be considered a planned development for those reasons. One, it's a junkyard. And the plan development in this case, in my opinion, is not appropriate for this particular use. However, if approval is recommended, there are some conditions that we have outlined on page 19 and 20 of the staff report. And that staff report, for the most part, we revised the outline plan conditions for the applicant. Probably the biggest one that I think there might be some contention on would be the landscaping. The applicant was not wanting to include landscaping, but because the site is 100% paved, we are introducing the opportunity for hazardous waste that leaks from these vehicles. Rain comes down, these rust, the hazardous material gets into this pavement, it runs into the sewer system and along the adjacent properties. By requiring landscaping and best practices to mitigate and filter that water, it'll help the environment and prevent some of that pollution going into the streams. So we did in fact recommend some landscaping that was not in the original conditions. Also, after speaking with the state, the police department, and the city yesterday, I'm requesting that we add an additional condition, that if we approve this, the applicant be required to obtain and maintain all the required local, city, county, and state licenses and permits for operating a scrap metal / vehicle junkyard. Because we want to make sure that if we say yes, then the police have the ability to go in there and make sure that they are registering these vehicles as they're required. They have to register each one of the VIN numbers within a couple of days of getting that car so that the police can be sure that they own it and they've gained access to that car legally. So I think it's important for us to require this. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Hull. Do we have any questions? Any board members have any questions of staff member at this time? Hearing none, we're ready for your presentation. As the applicant, please give us your name and address and your presentation.
Yes, ma'am. David Bray with the Bray Firm, 2950 Stage Plaza North, Bartlett 38134. Let me apologize to the board. I spoke with Mr. Bright on Tuesday, and he was scheduled to be here, and I've been texting him all morning and have not gotten a response, which is very unusual because he typically responds back immediately. So as to the last condition that's been added, I'm going to stand here and tell you guys, I believe most of those are in place. They may not be. Obviously, this would have to move forward to City Council, and I will address those with him. We do not object to that condition. That's fine. I will find out that information from him. As to the rest of the conditions, we don't object to the rest of the conditions, and for all of the items that were mentioned in the staff report, somewhat abbreviated though it was, if you look under Roman numeral 7, the 7 conditions listed there, I think those address most of the concerns. I'm going to go backwards a little bit. Most of you were here 2 months ago, but I don't believe all of you were. This was originally a zoning case, and one of the concerns that this board had about the zoning case was the inability to condition and make sure that Mr. Bright was living up to what he was saying. And that's why we went back and converted it to a PD. So that was specifically why we changed this to a PD. We added the buffers, we added the setbacks. We've limited the number of cars. If you see the site plan versus the aerial photos, we've reduced the number of cars that are on there, so there's not the issue when they're moving cars in and out. There's still room to maneuver and not have the cars on the street like some of those photos have shown. I would ask that if you go back to the photo that shows the current gate on the site, and I think there's two, I think it's a split screen, yeah. So the photo on the right is not reflective of how it is, and the photo on the left, that is the condition now. And as I told you guys, when I first made my first site visit, when Mr. Bright called me on this, I almost missed the site because you can't tell what's going on the site. It is that well screened from the public view. I would also ask you to go back to the zoning. and Ms. Hall addressed this well. I just want to point it out to you guys because it looks, no, the zoning map.
Oh, the zoning map.
Yes, ma'am. Because it sounds like this is a request in the middle of a residential area, but we have IH zoning on the other side of the street. We have EMP immediately to the north. And Mr. Bright went and got the business license for this when he started this business a number of years ago. There's some discrepancies in the zoning maps. We're not arguing that discrepancy, but the permit was issued for him to be there. This is not a new use. He has been there for a good period of time. And we had neighbors in support of this and no opposition at the last meeting when we came here. So I'm happy to answer your questions. Again, I apologize for Mr. Bright's absence. I don't know the backstory behind that.
Are there any questions?
Yeah, Mr. Bright, how do we explain, I was just looking at the website, based on the report that we were presented. How do you explain, I guess, no title, no problem? How do you do business without a title? It does seem to be a chop shop, I guess, in my case, but.
Now, for that, I would need him here to explain that. He addressed the website a little bit at the last meeting, and you know, part of that was he hired somebody else to do a website, and he said they filled in a lot of stuff. He does do some of these other operations at other locations, but not here. I can only tell you, I have made, I guess now 4 site visits to this site to meet him out there. I have not seen any dismantling or any work of cars. It's cars parked, cars being pulled in, cars being pulled out, but no dismantling, no work on the vehicles that are in there at the times that I've been there. Now, I'm giving you a snapshot in time. I can't say that that's 365 days. But I have never seen that. I haven't seen the evidence of it. There's a number of pictures through the staff report, but you notice a number of them go back a period of years. And I think things may have morphed through there. I believe now with the conditions that we have on this PD and the revised site plan, that all of the concerns are addressed with those conditions. And we're in agreement with those conditions, including the landscaping.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Bray, I have kind of the same concern. In fact, are you saying that he has other sites where he may be, I'm concerned about the chips for whips. Does he have that some other place that he uses?
Yes, sir. And in fact, one of them is not far from here, and I forget what the address is. He addressed that at the last meeting, that he will do work on vehicles, but that's at other sites. That's not at this location. Okay. This is his residence immediately to the south of this. This is his neighborhood. This is where he's lived all of his life since he was, I think he said last time, since he was 7 years old. So he's protective of the neighborhood.
Okay. So this site will just be for storing vehicles, and these vehicles will be moved to some other site. They'll be sold to go some other place. No repairs?
No repairs, no dismantling, no work on the vehicles at all. Towed in and then towed out. Okay. Yes, sir.
No,
and I believe the conditions assure that code enforcement will have the ability to make sure that that is exactly the case.
Okay. And what is he, I know he was cited because they said he was repairing vehicles. Is that how this all got started?
I don't remember what was on the original citation. I know part of it was discovering that the zoning, that this was a residential zone and he had a commercial operation.
Okay, but as far as you know now, it's just storage and
it is just and that's what I've seen. I can't tell you that from the original citation to the first time I showed up that something didn't change.
All right, thank you.
But when I've been out there, it's just been storage.
All right, thank you.
If I may, this case is before us because of the zoning enforcement case, which was for repairing vehicles. The photos from the zoning enforcement department shows evidence that there's some repair there was some repair at that time happening on facilities on the site. There were automobile parts scattered about. There was a dumpster that had lots of parts. There were parts being stored on a trailer bed in the back. There were trash cans filled with antifreeze bottles and other things that would suggest repair were happening on the site. And so that's why it's before us today. I also want to, indicate, which I probably didn't emphasize well, is that even without any repair or dismantling happening on the site, even as conditioned by staff, this is still defined as a junkyard. And that's why it's important that we make sure that they get properly regulated. Because I'm not suggesting that they are still dismantling. We're operating on the faith that that's not going to happen. But even as conditioned by staff, it's still a junkyard that requires regulation by the state and by the city.
Thank you. Anybody else on the board want to ask any questions? Is there any opposition here for this case? Okay, hearing none. If you don't have anything else to say, Mr. Bray, okay, we will close the public portion of this meeting.
And if I may, one other comment, I'm sorry. The fact that the website talks about it not being titled, the car is not being titled as a junkyard, they do have to report the VIN number of every vehicle that's there, and they do have to have a bill of sale for any car that's 12 years or older, and they have to have a title for any vehicle that's younger than 12 years. So they will be required to have that. So this website that's indicating all these other things that are happening on this site, because when you look at Google, that business is listed as this particular site. So they need to understand that if we approve it with these conditions, those are going to be the limitations of the site.
Can I add on?
Okay. I had closed the public portion. However, do you want to hear?
Yes.
Yes, we want to hear.
The website is a problem, and prior to going forward to city council, I'm going to ask him to either change that website or take that website down, because there are some conflicts in that don't match with his public testimony to you guys and his statements to me and what I'm presenting. So we will address that prior to going forward to city council.
Okay, thank you. So at this point, the public portion is closed, and we are ready for your motion.
Move to approve item number 6, case PD 2024-016, formerly Z 2024-007.
Do I have a second? Okay, we have a second, and we have a motion. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, I guess when it was initially brought to us as a case, I didn't see a problem with it, but being discovered with the new information, just kind of being able, the way that you advertise is the type of business that you get, and that's the business that you go for. As a business person, that's what tends to happen. I don't know that I could, with all of the things that are going on in Memphis, I don't know that I could say, hey, yeah, I'm on board for this. Definitely seeing clearly on the website, no title, no problem. It just kind of puts me in a place where it's like, oh man, like, did I really have a wool pulled over my eyes in a case? So for that, until we can get some type of clarity, or, if he was here, I think things would be a little bit different, and maybe he could speak to this directly. I don't know. But presented with this information, I would say that I'm probably not going to vote for this approval.
Okay, Ms. O'Connell?
Yes, I just wanted to say I think that staff really researched this whole thing well. I think you did an excellent job of really going in, trying to be fair, both to the business, but then also, looking at the code, looking at state law, city law, and I think it was a very well-researched presentation, and I appreciate that. So with that, I will not support this application.
Anybody else? Anybody else? Okay, hearing none, I think we need to take an individual vote. Okay?
Mr. Winter, Mr. McKinnon,
No.
Mr. Tolles,
No.
Ms. O'Connell,
No.
Ms. Wilbanks,
No.
Vice Chair Lyles Wallace,
No.
and Chair Sharp.
No.
Motion fails.
Motion fails. Okay. Is there anything else as far as presentations for the board?
No, Madam Chair.
Would you like to make an announcement?
I would like to make an announcement. I would like to congratulate Mr. and Mrs. Penzis on the fact that they're going to be having a new staff member in about 9 months. So congratulations.